This is Grapplers Talk.
What is up, fans of Grapplers Talk? This is Dave coming at you with another episode here each and every week. Thank you to everyone for downloading the podcast and tuning in. We appreciate the love and support we get from everybody out there. I'm constantly getting feedback from everyone about how much they're enjoying the show so far. And that's the goal, just to bring you awesome content each and every week. I'm thrilled to have this gentleman on as a guest. We share a similar lineage and been a good friend of mine for a long time. And it's been a while since I've caught up with him. So all the way from Florida, none other than Dave Lohsen, man. What is up, brother?
Man, doing good, man.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has. It's been a few years since we got to catch up. And, I know we did each other's podcasts a while back, but, we got a new one coming out, Grapplers Talk. So I just wanted to have you on. And we talk strictly jiu-jitsu on this one. Jiu-jitsu, MMA, fighting, all the fun stuff. So
oh, cool.
I'm excited to get to talk to you a little bit. I wanted to introduce you. You're a lifelong martial artist in my mind. You've been training for a very long time, not only in jiu-jitsu, but in karate and different martial arts. So I just wanted to start from the beginning. I know I've heard the story before, but not all of the fans out there have. So let's just start into the beginning. Who introduced you to martial arts? What made you get into martial arts? And then we'll talk about the evolution along the way.
So my introduction to martial arts was as a kid. My parents used to live down in Livermore, and in 1978 we moved up to Calaveras County, a little town called Burson. And I remember watching TV. I think it was predominantly Saturdays, and Kung Fu Theater would come on. This was roughly about 1978, Shaw Brother type stuff, five Deadly Venoms, that kind of stuff. Maybe some Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
Good Guys Wear Black, that kind of stuff. And that really kind of got me going. And so I would, I'd beg my parents to get me to go do some lessons. And I used to take like old soda bottles. That was my first heavy bag. I'd fill it with water, hang it from an oak tree in the back. I didn't have gloves or anything else. And I'd hit this 2-liter bottle, till usually I got injured, and then rinse and repeat. And then eventually my parents found a Taekwondo class that was down the road. It was about 5 miles or 6 miles away from the house. And then, so that kind of started it. We went in as a family, and very quickly the rest of the family ditched. So, but I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
So I started training in Taekwondo. That was roughly 1978, maybe a hair later, possibly 79. And then did that through high school, bouncing in and out. I never stayed consistent. If it was baseball season, I'd go do baseball. If it was football, I'd go play football, whatever the sport was. And then come back, train a little bit more. And that's the same class, though, that Vernon White, who is one of Ken Shamrock's original members of the Lions Den. Vernon and I went to high school together, and we both trained Taekwondo at the same Taekwondo school under Mr. Vernon Mayhall.
Yeah, that's badass, dude. We just had Carlton Crosby on recently, and he was talking about Vernon White and the old school Neil Amos fights back in the day. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I have video of that somewhere.
Yeah.
Of the old, the fights on Main Street.
Yeah. If you could find that video, man, it's worth a lot of money in this area. I know.
Yeah.
But Vernon White, he definitely had a good background being with the Shamrocks, and definitely made it to the UFC in the early 2000s, had a couple big fights in there. And, the old school hardcore people will definitely know who Vernon White is. But that's pretty cool.
So like I said, so we trained together Taekwondo under Mr. Vernon Mayhall. We both graduated from the same high school. We never hung out. It wasn't that kind of stuff in class. We would train together, things of that nature. I was more friends with his sister than I really was with him. And so then graduated high school, ended up down in Stockton for college, and then got my girlfriend, my wife now, got her into a Aikido class while we were down there. and kind of got her to train a little bit. Then did the police academy in 1990. Loved that. That was a fun experience. Never worked as an officer, but unfortunately, life changed shortly after graduating.
Right.
But then, but the police academy is what made me want to go harder. The experience I had in the academy was a blast, and it made me double down. And so ultimately, I talked with Mr. Mayhall. I was still doing some instruction for him, and I was asking him if he was cool if I went looking for another style. And so then he was good with it, and Melissa and I were trying to figure out what we were doing. We're getting ready to move from one apartment to another, and all of my gear was in storage. And I told Melissa, I said, "Hey, there's a place over here that's a karate school. Let's just stop and see if they sell gis." I walked in and I talked to some guys up front. I'm pretty sure it was Sensei Dennis.
Yeah.
And a couple other guys. He went to the back, got me a gi. I talked to some people in the lobby, and I went out to the car and I sat down and I looked at Melissa and I go, "I need to train here."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Cool. What's the style?" I go, "I don't know." I'm like, I legit, I have no clue. I go, "But just talking with the people inside, it just feels like a place I need to be." So literally, I went in the very next day and signed up. And at that point, I already had my black belt in Taekwondo, and I told them that when I walked in, but put on my white belt, day one, and that kind of set a big path, for the rest of my martial arts journey, because that was my introduction to meeting Sensei Eric, and then if it wasn't for Eric, the path that we're on right now in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA and everything else, probably doesn't exist.
Yeah. He was such a crucial factor to having jiu-jitsu in this area. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like Stockton is a mecca for fighting, for martial arts, for boxing. And without Sensei Eric, this thing doesn't turn into what it is now. I mean, I think there's roughly about 10, maybe more gyms in town, or at least in the area between here and Lodi. And it's grown so much, but without Sensei Eric, that really doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I would definitely put him, at the heart of it. I've had conversations with Sensei Dennis and the like, and I mean, Dennis is as OG as it gets.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he the way I understand it is he actually started with Caesar and Half before Eric. But Eric's impact, because he was the one that had the school. He was the one that actively, was teaching and promoting and things of that nature. But I mean, the whole family is truly responsible. Steve Heath is another one of the big OGs. I was very fortunate. I'm black belt number 3.
Yeah.
And the guys I was able to stand next to, Steve Heath is number 2, and Dennis is number 1. When we look at the certificates and the like I said, I'm number 3. And I mean, to think that I'm even in that group is an honor.
That group, I was at Rodney's at the time when you guys were promoted, and that group is such a solid group. I mean, all of you guys, I looked up to all of you guys for many, many years as a young teenager finding jiu-jitsu. Seeing you guys in there and the commitment you guys all made. I met Sensei Dennis right off the bat, and when you meet Dennis, you just know he's born different. He's Dennis. I
love Sensei Dennis, but that statement is so true.
Yeah, he's just a one of a kind person, man, and if you're good with him, it's like you're golden. But yeah, man, those guys that you were promoted alongside, man, were amazing people. And I remember hearing stories about Steve Heath before I even met him, and we're talking when I was 05, early days.
Okay.
And I remember hearing stories about him fighting Chuck Liddell and all the different things he had accomplished. And he fought most of those early UFC guys that were all on the cards. I mean, he was fighting, guys like Ivan Salivary and, things
Right.
like that back in the day. Like everyone was coming up trying to make a name for themselves. So I believe that you were promoted with, some of the top guys I've ever been in a training room with. And,
Well, and that's what I'm saying. It's a huge honor for me because those guys. I mean, I'm not in their class. I mean, those guys they're the ones that I was looking to when I first stepped in the gym. With the Shingu Institute of Karate.
yeah.
When I walked in, one of my first introductions, I almost always show up early, and there's two guys in the lobby because he had the gym on one side and then he had the actual karate studio on the other.
Mm-hmm.
And you used to be able to get a membership that would get you into both. And one of my first introductions was going in, and when I walk in the door, there's two guys grappling in the entrance, and they're grappling over a knife. And that was Dennis and Steve.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't even know who they are at this point, but there's two guys, doing this kind of controlled, grappling match, but over a knife in the lobby. I mean, they were already OGs before I even walked in the door.
Yeah.
I mean, and to just be part of that graduating class, if you will, is a huge honor because, like I said, I mean, those are the guys that I looked up to when I walked in. Them and Sensei Donnie and and the like. I mean, they were all just phenomenal people.
Yeah. I talked to somebody recently on the podcast, and he trained with Sensei Eric. I want to say like 08, 09, somewhere in there.
Okay, that was almost about because I left California in 2009.
Okay. So this was like right around the time Sensei Eric got his black belt.
Okay, yeah.
And he had a good description of Shingu Fighter, and he said it was one of those tough gyms where either you got tougher or you never came back, right? And it was really a unique place, and I remember like the early days coming up and going to California Street and seeing the atmosphere and the fogged up windows with the green mats and just that atmosphere that they were providing there. Guys like Tim McKenzie training for fights, and it was just a different place, man. And if you ever walked into that gym back in the day, you were hooked. And
well, that was one of the differences, and that's what I tell people right now. I'm like, today's jiu-jitsu is different. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's pure and simple.
Yeah.
Everybody back in the day, with exception of myself, because I was already with Eric before it all broke. But once jiu-jitsu hit the scene, the early people coming in didn't come in because they wanted jiu-jitsu. They came in because they were interested in MMA.
Yeah.
MMA and jiu-jitsu were synonymous pretty much with each other.
Absolutely.
Now, by today's standards, you have jiu-jitsu purists and the like, but I mean, those early groups, I mean, everybody coming in was a wannabe tough guy, and training like it.
Yeah. And that's a very good point. I even myself, I was looking for MMA, I was trying to get to the UFC one day. Right. And, I knew that you had to learn the grappling arts and nowadays with jiu-jitsu, it's grown so much to where it's a sport in its own.
Correct.
Back then, tournaments were few and far between. There was really no cross-training as much. It was kind of frowned upon to cross-train at another jiu-jitsu gym.
Well, and that's where the early days, because, I mean, remember, I'm training with Eric in Okinawa and Goju-Ryu, and UFC's hit the scene. We know the Shamrocks, the Lion's Den is right there. I mean, literally, it's just down the road from Eric's Academy.
Yeah.
And I'm right there, and I'm just about to ask Eric for permission to go see if I could train at the Shamrocks to supplement my game. And I never actually asked him because literally as I'm preparing to broach that question, he goes, "Dave, do you know who these Gracies are?" I was like, yeah, at first my eyes lit up. Like, I'm like, what, is somebody local? And he goes, well, I'm training with Caesar and Half over in San Francisco, and that's when my heart dropped.
Yeah.
Because I mean, man, I'm a kid who makes no money at that point in time. So once he told me it was San Francisco, I was like, okay, the chances of me making it over there is never.
Yeah.
But then that's when, because Eric and I, in a lot of instances, Eric was a massive mentor for me.
Yeah.
The amount of time he gave to me is incredible. Because I would train, and then everybody would leave, and there's times when Eric and I would be there until almost 11 o'clock, just talking and training.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he started into jiu-jitsu, he basically said, hey, if you don't mind, I only get to train a couple days a week. So if you don't mind, I'll show you some what I'm learning so that you could drill with me.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my introduction. This is prior to him becoming an official affiliation with Caesar.
Yeah.
And, but man, yeah, Eric was a massive mentor of mine in a lot of aspects.
You brought up the Shamrocks, and back in the day, there always was a huge rivalry between the Shamrocks and the Gracies. You talk about the early 90s, and you had Hoist Gracie and Ken Shamrock, and then you go on down the road, and I mean, it continued for many, many years. I mean, Frank fought Caesar in the mid 2000s. So
yeah, that was, I think, 2006.
Yeah, and
I have the was it the
badge?
No, the flyer from the fights. We bought, because we were at that one.
Yeah.
The program.
Yeah, that one was a good one. I had just started getting real deep into it at that time, and I remember Sensei Eric saying, hey, Caesar's going to fight Frank Shamrock, and we're all going to go out there. And man, I was just soaking it all up at that point. But talking back to the karate school that you started with, that was on Kettleman Lane. Do you remember like if you could take a look at that gym now, like what was it like? Like, was it more of a karate style gym or?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you went in, they had two very distinct. So it was weight equipment on one side, and so you could get a gym membership just to lift weights. And then they had a small set of double doors that you could go through. And then it was it was gorgeous. I mean, beautiful hardwood floor to train on, full wall of mirrors, things of that nature. A lot of the traditional, like the makiwaras and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so when I first signed up, I paid for everything. I signed up for the Goju lessons, and I signed up for the gym. I was like, man, this is going to be it. I'm going to get in, I'm going to lift weights, and then I'm going to go train. And then slowly I drifted away from the lifting weights, because I found every time I pushed myself too hard on the weights, I got my ass kicked that night.
Yeah.
When we would spar. So eventually I just, because Eric was no joke. I mean, when we did our conditioning, that was definitely no joke,
Yeah, many people don't understand that Sensei Eric was going to Japan and traveling all across the world at an earlier time, and he was well known in the Goju karate community. He was in the instructional videos with the high up guys.
Right.
And, I remember finding those videos and hearing all about it, and he's always been known as the karate guy, and very, very well respected in that community, even to this day. I just saw recently he was out in, I believe, Washington, doing a seminar out there. So, always been a well respected in the karate community, but he comes from the old school, so a lot tougher, a lot more tradition, a lot more, formalities to it than I would say just a normal American karate place. Yeah.
Very, very definitely.
Yeah.
Well, and then throw on top of it that when I started with him, I was in my early to mid 20s, and I believe he's at least 20 years older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so here I am, I'm a young buck coming in, 22, maybe 23. And you got to think he's probably already, 43, 44, 45.
Yeah.
And that's when he began, the journey, training with Caesar and Half was about that age. I mean, at the time period, man, when jiu-jitsu was rough.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a very different time period, especially like Caesar and Half were together running an academy. So it was, guys like Kurt Osiander were training, BJ Penn, Dave Terrell's, the list goes on, but before Diaz brothers were even involved.
Guess who I ran into out here in Florida?
Who's that?
Terrell.
Oh, wow.
So we're at a jiu-jitsu tournament down in Orlando, and I'm walking along and I see this dude who's standing probably about 50 feet in front of me as I'm walking that direction. And he's just kind of eyeballing me, and he's kind of bobbing his head a little bit from side to side, and as I'm walking along, and then, he said something to me, because again, I'm out here. I'm not looking for people I know.
Yeah.
When I'm walking along, and Dave Terrell was out here with his son and a couple other people, and they were like, well, while they were in Florida, let's pick up a competition.
Wow.
So I got a chance to meet up with him a little bit, and that was kind of cool. I did not expect. Apparently, I guess he has some family that lives out here.
Wow. Yeah, Dave's such a good guy, man. I reached out to him recently to set up an interview with him, and his response, I told him, hey, I'm a longtime student of Eric Shingu, training partner Steve Heath, guys like that. And his response was almost immediate. He said, if you're training with those guys, I'll do an interview with you. Like, those guys are legends. So,
well, he was, so when Caesar came to Eric's, this is in 1996, he had 2 blue belts with him. Terrell was one of them.
Yeah, he was always one of the top guys in Caesar's program, correct?
Yeah, as far as I know, anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. On that history side, I don't really know, but I know when Caesar came to Lodi the first time. This was, again, it's 1996. I know because I have Caesar's signature in my IOGKF passbook, logging my seminars.
Wow.
And he brought two blue belts with him, and Dave Terrell was one of them. That I remember, and then Dave Camarillo, was the other blue belt.
Yeah.
And,
man, you see those guys nowadays and where they're at, and Dave's got a great academy he's been running for probably about 20 years now. And
as far as I know, he is the OG no-gi school.
Oh yeah. And then Dave Camarillo, I mean, his accolades speak for themselves. He's got a great academy. He's got guys like Mark Zuckerberg and, out in the Bay Area, and he's doing his thing out there, and it's wonderful. Like, I mean, a lot of people don't understand that rich history that we have in our lineage, with Sensei Eric and Caesar and everyone that was involved. And looking back at it, it's like, man, we were able to get the Gracies in Lodi and in Stockton, and back then it just seemed like, they were in Torrance, and they were such big names, it was harder to come by. So everyone wanted to go to the source for it. But that's pretty amazing. So you start picking up jiu-jitsu. You're training a little bit with Sensei Eric, doing seminars, things like that. When Caesar comes down, when do you make that decision? Like, hey, I'm gonna really go deep into jiu-jitsu, and maybe not as much into the karate side.
That's a hard one, because I got my third degree with Eric in Okinawan Goju, and at the time period, I was one of only a handful of people that were still training both styles with Eric. Most people were choosing one or the other. Right. They were either coming in training jiu-jitsu or they were training in the karate. I was one of few. And I remember at one point in time, Eric was like, hey, I'm going to revamp my schedule. He goes, it's going to help you. Because I was doing typically, 2 to 3 training sessions a day. One of them I would come in, usually try to help out with the kids. Then I would train in Goju, and then I would do jiu-jitsu, and, usually pretty exhausted.
Right.
Because by the time, because like I said, Eric ran, hard training sessions.
Oh yeah.
So by the time I got to the jiu-jitsu side of it, I was usually pretty burnt. But, um, and then even when my wife and I opened up our own academy, I was still teaching both. I was
Mhm.
teaching Goju predominantly with the kids, and then doing jujitsu with the adults.
Right.
Um, I still pretty much teach, like most of my kickboxing I do, still based on the foundation of what they taught. We're just not really doing the kata.
Yeah.
Um, but God, I'm trying to think, when might it have been that I really made the push? Because I definitely fell in love with jujitsu. It's a different feeling.
Yeah.
Um, I love karate. Don't get me wrong. I still a couple of my students here also have done traditional karate in the past, and there's times where I was doing kata, just a couple months ago, just to do
Just
it
to
for myself.
refresh it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Um,
there's things in Goju that, I think that are very valuable for, striking. And man, when you see really good Goju guys like Sensei Dennis and Sensei Eric and even Steve, is pretty good. You see those guys incorporate their Goju into their stand up, and Rodney was one of my favorites to watch. The way he would incorporate his katas in his stand-up fighting was amazing. I thought the kata was just a joke for a long time. I didn't understand it. And when you see the good Goju guys really incorporate it, it's really important and it's really awesome to see. Like it's a good style of
yeah,
martial
yeah,
arts.
yeah. Especially the way they trained it.
Yeah.
Um, the way the entire family, because I mean they were all amazing. Everything from Sensei Eric to Sensei Corey. Um, she was watching her move when she would do kata and things of that nature. I mean,
Yeah.
she was very powerful in her own right. Even watching little Sammy when
Yeah.
now she's not little Sammy anymore, but I mean, even watching her, I mean,
Right.
it was a crack up. I mean, back in the day, I mean, watching a little kid on the mat trying to be a mat bully, and then Sensei Eric would yell, he'd be like, "Sammy," and she would just yell back, "What?" He's like, "You're up," and then she would come out and just lay a whooping.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, and look bored in the process. I mean,
If you know Sammy, she's got a little spunk to her. She's got a little bit of fire behind that. So yeah, she was always fun. I remember going in there when I was a youngster, and me and Sammy are pretty close in age, and we got to be very good friends. And yeah, she would talk shit every time we'd get to the front desk. But really awesome to hear. I remember when I was training, I'd say like '05, maybe '06, somewhere in there. I remember I would hear your name come up from time to time, and it was only sporadically we would see you guys, maybe '07
right?
maybe, but and then I kind of put it together like, hey, they're out in Valley Springs area, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I started to understand that. So talk to me about opening that first gym and everything about what you went through with it.
So I always knew that was my path. Now, whether or not it would become my life's path, that was another story. But I always knew eventually that I would be doing my own place. Because even when I went in and talked to them when I was doing Taekwondo, the goal was that eventually I was going to run my own school.
Yeah.
And Eric helped me out tremendously with that. Like I said, he um, there was a time period because he always knew from day one what some of my goals were, and he he really helped me. He put together an instructors seminar once, and there were supposed to be 5 of us that were supposed to show up. I was the only one that showed. He put together 3 days worth of training, and I was the only one. It was going to be a Friday night, all day Saturday, all day Sunday.
Wow.
I was the only one that showed up, and I told him, I said, "Hey, I'll understand if you want to just postpone it, and we'll wait because for some reason the other people didn't show up."
Right.
And he goes, "Nope." He goes, "You and we're going to do this, man." The training that I got that weekend, I mean, I could barely walk on Saturday morning. My legs were so jello. Um, but I mean, we did everything. He wasn't just showing me technique. We were talking business.
Yep.
We were talking how to run a school. Helping me out with some of the ins and outs and things of that nature. And so we opened up our academy, I think roughly about 2001, maybe 2002. And it was kind of small. I mean, when we first opened up, I mean, I didn't have a building, so I was just renting time out of a local vets hall, kind of like when Eric was running out of the JCL.
Oh yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, one of our local vets hall, I could get 2 days a week. And man, for the first couple, I put signs out, free jiu-jitsu lessons, and nobody was showing up.
Yeah.
Not a single person. And then one day a car pulled in. I got excited. A gentleman comes out with his kid, and I go through, do the typical thing like, have you ever trained? No. And then, he's telling me he's never trained before. We start the lesson. Pretty much it was a private lesson for about 2 hours.
Right.
And then afterwards I was like, hey, so if you want, we can roll a little bit and you can see if you can do some of what we just went over against me. And he's like, sure. And as soon as we slap bump, he launched at me. And his kid that was sitting off on the side in the chair literally leaps up, is standing, and is now yelling, get him, Dad, get him. And come to find out, that dude, I believe his name was Isidro, trained with Half over in San Francisco and just happened to be in Valley Springs.
Oh, Lord.
Saw my sign and wanted to make sure I was legit.
Wow.
And so he pretended like he didn't know anything until we were rolling. And the moment he leapt at me, I knew that it was, that it was on.
Yeah.
And so I ended up submitting him. And then I looked at him and I go, you lied. I go, you are not new. And he goes, no. And that's when he told me the story.
Yeah.
About that he trained with Half. He lives in San Francisco, has family up in Valley Springs, saw my sign, and ultimately wanted to check me out, make sure I was legit. From that point on out, he would come up to town every once in a while, and he would stop by and grab a training session with us every once in a while. But no, I mean, in our little area, Valley Springs is not a big town.
No,
it's not a big area.
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything. I actually recently I heard there was a little gym that popped up in Valley Springs. I think they have a blue belt instructor. I'm not sure the name or anything like that, but there's not really very many places to go. You either got to go to Lodi or you got to make it out to Stockton or something along those lines to actually get good training in. There's not much up there. So,
but I mean, I used to train with Eric, probably at least 4 days a week until I opened up the academy. And then, as I referred to it with most people, when I would go down to train with Eric, some people would always look at me weird, because like I'd see all these new faces, and people would look at me weird, like, who's this new guy? Because there's always like this little pecking order thing. And then I'd roll with them. Usually, I'm a very polite roll. I'm not a rough roll.
Right.
But at the same time though, I'm hard to kill.
Yeah.
So these new guys, would try to come at me pretty hard. And then usually somebody would let them know who I was, and they're like, oh, I heard about you. And I'm like, yeah, I'm the ghost.
Yeah.
I'm the one that everybody's heard of, but few have actually seen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's how it was for me, at least. I remember hearing your name come up a lot, and it was always with a lot of respect behind it too. And then I remember seeing you and Melissa, and you guys would bring down a bunch of kids on the weekends, and different time periods, and train with the group too. But you guys were always too good. Like you guys were way better than me at the time. So. But I remember looking up to you. I remember seeing Melissa around for many years, and I always heard that she was one of the top ladies in the area, for a long time, and just a true badass.
Currently, right now, we were just in Las Vegas. She has her. I'm looking at her placard right now, #1 in the world.
Yeah, that's badass, man. And the fact that it's hard to really. At least I've been working on my wife for a while, but it's hard to really, sell the jiu-jitsu to your spouse, in some instances.
It wasn't easy.
Yeah.
It was years.
Yeah.
It was years of me coming home and being like, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
Doing arm bars and triangles and things of that nature. And then eventually, I mean, she knew it wasn't going to go away.
Yeah.
So it was either embrace it or.
Or you're going to
then,
be doing arm bars on her in the living room all the time.
but then what would happen though is she would start to train, and then we're at the house or whatever, and my mom would pull her aside and go, "Hey, Melissa, I just want to make sure I see the bruises. Is Dave abusing you?" I'm like, "Oh my God, come on!" Like,
Yeah, those martial arts bruises, man, they pop up all the time in the weirdest areas too. Like I still get them to this day, like some random areas. People like staring at me, like, "What in the world? You got
yeah.
bruises all over your arms, your legs."
But no, Melissa, she was always. I mean, once I got her in, that allowed me to really solidify everything.
Yeah,
Because in the beginning, I would kind of phase in and out. I'm like, I need to train, but yet I'm taking away time from my family. And then, my son was born, and then, I'm coming home and she's telling me, about, oh, hey, Christian just did this. And I'm like, man, I just missed it, and then, but then once I got her to start training, and then I got my son to start training, then it was like, it was perfect, because then I got the best of both worlds,
yeah,
and they, both of them now have surpassed me.
yeah.
Like I said, I mean, IBJJF, I'm looking at her placard right now. I mean, not just, she didn't just win Master World. She is the #1 ranked Masters black belt, Master 5.
Yeah.
You know, and then Christian now, Jesus. I
Yeah.
mean, the kid is.
That kid, man, I've literally seen him since he was a very young kid, and where he's at now, man, is just, I mean, it's amazing. I remember he got on the Contender Series. Wasn't he with PFL, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
PFL, and
he fought for the PFL. He did Contender Series. I'm looking at his award right now. 2018, he was the MMA Fighter of the Year in the state of Florida.
yeah.
And then, was it 18 or 19? UFC Fight Pass voted him, I think, #3 finish of the year.
Was that with that banana split submission that he hit?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That thing's been blown up by a lot of well-respected people in the community. Eddie Bravo, I remember, reposted about it.
right,
I've
yeah,
seen some big people post that submission of Christian hitting it and how badass it was, man. Like he is a stud when it comes to
yeah,
fighting and jiu-jitsu in general. Like I watched him in that Contender Series fight, and yeah, it didn't go his way, but his jiu-jitsu was off the charts, man.
yeah. That Contender Series fight, that was, most people like don't know. So Christian got the call that he was going to go on the Contender Series. Now, up until that time period, Christian and I, any given fight, we've probably had at least 20 private sessions of just him and I, sparring, rolling, you name it, throwing hands, going everything. Um, on that one, he and I were trying to get some sessions in, but his back was so messed up that we could barely train. And I remember talking with him, about, do we call the fight and hope that we can get another shot, or do we roll the dice? And he's tough, so he said nope, because you never know when you get another shot. So even though his back was completely messed up, he said, let's go.
Yeah.
So the game plan was set, and man, he nailed every piece of the game plan right out the gate. I remember sitting there in his corner going, oh shit, like he's pulling it off.
Yeah.
I mean, literally every piece, the takedown, the position, the Darce choke, every piece he nailed exactly the game plan. And his opponent, Christian's got him, and I'm sitting there and I see his hand lift up like he's about to tap.
Yeah.
And then I saw his hand go back down. I'm like, fuck. But then, Christian rallies. I mean, his transitions, triangle, arm bar, things of that nature.
Oh yeah.
Like,
He was chaining those submissions together in that match so well, and I mean, really putting on a great display of jiu-jitsu.
But then, unfortunately, the issue was that, which kind of sucked, because I mean, Dana said something about it, but Christian had no gas tank.
Yeah.
As I said, his back was so messed up. He basically took that fight with no training.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that's a true warrior though, and that's something to be proud of. Like, those Contender Series fights are really, really tough. Like, I mean, there's a local guy here that trains with Victor Galdon, and he's been killing it in A1 combat, and he takes the Contender Series fights and gets brutally knocked out. And those fights are very, very tough matches. It's one of those
matches, and it's also different though, because.
Yeah.
So I've been in Christian's corner for every fight he's ever done. With our fight team here, I've now with all the fighters I've been with, I'm close to about 200 fights, and I physically have been in the corner and wrapped every one of my fighters with exception of about 4 fights. And that's only because Melissa and I were in Las Vegas competing ourselves at the same time that a couple of the fights were going on here in Florida. So Christian wrapped up hands and cornered those, but only about 4 fights out of 200 with our fight team did I not personally sit in their corner and wrap their hands.
Wow.
And so, I mean, I'm very versed in how the game goes.
Yeah.
But when we did Contender Series, we're at the hotel, they call everybody onto the bus. So we get on the bus, and then they bring us to the Apex Center, and they ask for only the fighters to leave the bus, and they left all the corners on. Normally, I'm with my fighters from the moment we get there. I don't care what commission it is.
Right.
I'm literally side by side, because my goal is to handle everything that we can.
Right.
And let the fighters
focus on fighting.
Chill.
Yeah.
I mean, and so they had Christian leave the bus without me. All the corners stayed on the bus. And then about 15 minutes later, we got to leave the bus. And then they escorted us immediately to the warm-up room. And so I'm in the warm-up room, and I'm going, where's my fighter? And they go, don't worry, he's with the doctor. He's doing his drug test, everything else. I'm like, I'm already seeing some of the other fighters with their groups. Where's my fighter? And they're like, don't worry, he's with the doctor and everything else. And normally, like, again, I would be with him.
Yeah.
And then they're telling me that, all fighters have to be wrapped up by a certain time period. All fighters had to be wrapped and taped before the first fight would even begin. And I'm seeing fighters back. They're already getting wrapped up and everything else. I'm going, where is my fighter? And they're like, he's still with the doctor. I'm like, guys, look, we only have like 20 minutes before first fight runs, and you want his hands wrapped. Is there any reason why I can't be with him right now? Like, can I wrap his hands in front of the doctor?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, well, I don't see why that wouldn't be a problem. And then, I'm kind of texting Christian a little bit. And then so finally, when I get to find Christian, then he's able to do his test, and things of that nature. And then we run back, I wrap him up, and and then we get ready. But unfortunately, normally, I mean, I'm literally with my fighters the entire time, and we were separate for probably about a good 40 minutes, well, and I had to basically force myself to get back to him.
Yeah, and that's tough too, like especially as a father and son team too. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's a certain dynamic in his corner. I'm sure there's a certain way you talk to him, certain things that you guys could probably give looks and understand what each other's talking about. But when you're not even around him, exactly. it throws the whole game off. So,
which is also one of the reasons why I wrap my fighters' hands.
Right.
I know a lot of coaches don't wrap their own fighters' hands. I've wrapped every one of my fighters' hands because, I mean, we're literally sitting there face to face, talking about what we're doing. And that's a major transition. When you go from just like hanging around to now you're putting the armor on. I mean, it's a big mental shift.
Oh yeah.
Right in that moment. But it was a great experience. And guess who we ran into at Contender Series?
Who's that?
Dave Terrell. So he had a fighter also on the Contender Series, and so I bumped into him at the hotel.
That's pretty.
I didn't even know he had a fighter on there. So yeah, it's kind of funny. I keep bumping into Terrell every once in a while.
Yeah, that's badass, man. And And you've been a part of not only your school in Florida, but like back here in NorCal, man. You were like the guy that brought up Nicholas Coring. And I know for a long time he was training at your gym. And I remember you guys coming in a Saturday at Shingu, and you were showing us these fights at the Fat Cat. And I think he might have been too young to even stay in the Fat Cat at the time.
Correct.
I think he was like 15, 16. I'm not 100% sure, but I remember you talking to Sensei Eric about him, and and telling him, hey, this guy's real tough, and you see him nowadays and the MMA run he went on, and now he's knocking people out in bare knuckle. And man, like, you were a huge part of that. Like, now he's with the Diaz Academy and doing well.
Nick was one of my original blue belts.
Yeah.
And so early on, I had a very small handful of guys that wanted to fight. And the fights were going on at the Fat Cat. Now those were pancration or pin. Where you weren't allowed to punch to the face because it was still, MMA was still illegal in the state of California.
Yeah, there was no camo back then.
Right, but you could get away with doing the pancrase style of no strikes to the face. So they could punch, kick, everything to the body. They could do all the submissions, everything else, and they were wearing all the typical gear. They weren't wearing shin guards and things of that nature, but it was fun. I mean, it was a great experience.
Yeah.
I had Nick, and I had Josh Thornburg.
Oh yeah.
And those guys were on that particular pancrase series were undefeated. We didn't have any losses, and both guys finished out as champions in that organization.
Yeah.
And then they turned in their belts, and then decided to give. Well, Josh turned in his belt, and then fought professionally, and actually ended up going up against one of Gilbert Melendez's guys, which we got a victory over that. It was a last second switch out.
Yeah, Thornburg was fighting quite a bit in the early 2000s. I remember seeing him on a lot of the local cards back then. And
then unfortunately there was a couple series of some knockouts that were not healthy for him.
Yeah, that's kind of the game though, right?
Yeah, but then Nick, I got a knee injury, so it sidelined him for a little bit. I think, to be honest, that helped mature him quite a bit, because it kind of held him back a little bit from trying to do too much too fast.
Right.
Because Nick was one in the very, very early days when he came in. He was probably 16 when he first came in. Him and two friends, Marty, I think, was one. I'm trying to remember the other one, and they're all, we want to fight. They're doing some backyard stuff.
Yeah.
And I think it was Nick came to me and said, hey, I signed up for a smoker. At this point, Nick's like 17 years old. He's like, I signed up for a smoker, and we're going to do full rules. So elbows and everything. I looked at him, I'm like, dude, are you dumb? I'm like, do they know that you're a minor? You're not even an adult? And he's like, yeah, they're cool with it.
Wow.
I go, what division are they going to put you in? They go, well, I'm going to be in this division and this rank. And I look over at one of my other guys. I go, well, that's his division. So I called him over and I said, put this headgear on. And then he proceeded to beat the living crap out of Nick. And then Nick took the headgear off and he goes, I don't think I'm going to do the smoker. I was like, smart decision, Nick.
Yeah. And man, he's really made a name for himself. He fought quite a few GKO fights in Jackson. Did very well with those. I don't know if he lost one. Not that I can remember. And then
we got a chance to catch up with him. Because unfortunately, the times I've been back to California haven't been under the best circumstances. My dad passed away, so I went back there for his memorial, and we got a chance to go see. We went down. We got a chance to go see Nick. Christian got a couple training sessions in while we were down there, and it was great. We went down to the Nick Diaz Academy, and hooked up with some stuff there. Like I said, we got a chance to because Christian and Nick got some great rolls in while they were there, and then Christian got some sparring rounds in while he was there as well.
Yeah. And I'm sure, back in the day, they're both pretty young men. They were probably going back and forth in jiu-jitsu together as youngsters, right?
Well, Christian was still very young.
Oh, he was much
Um,
younger. Okay.
yeah, he was much younger. So at that time period, when Nick is probably 17 or so, I mean, yeah, Christian's maybe about like 12 years old, something like
Wow.
that. He was still
Okay.
pretty young.
Yeah.
But I loved it though because there's a couple of them where because like I said, Nick was doing really good on the pancrase scene. They're the first two belts that the team had ever earned, and then the group that was doing the Fat Cat were doing some on a Sunday at this like old building in Modesto, and it was like an old church or something like that. But they just threw up like a boxing ring in the middle of it, and so I would take some of the other guys and we would go do fights there. So to be in the boxing ring and the like. And so Christian was making a name for himself on the jiu-jitsu scene. And we go in there, but Nick and Raymond and a couple of my other guys kind of put the bug in Christian's ear. So, we're going in there and Christian's filling out the paperwork, and some other people saw Christian and they're like, hey, it's pretty cool. And, we're glad to see you. And then they stop when they see him filling out the paperwork. And they're like, Christian, I thought you only did jujitsu. And like, I think it was Nick that basically looked at him and goes, not anymore.
Yeah. He definitely got bit by the bug at some point, And,
yeah. So then that turned into one of Christian's first ever, if you want to call it, because same thing when we came out here to Florida. Florida's got some weird amateur rules. When we first came out, you had to have 3 fights before, like from standing, I could punch you in the face. But if we hit the ground, I couldn't punch you in the face.
Okay.
You had to have 3 fights before they would open up the amateur rules. They call it ground and pound rules. And then after a couple of years of us doing that, then they opened up and they repealed the ground and pound rules, in their AMI side.
Did you ever find out why that is?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a strange rule. Yeah.
Change quite a bit.
Okay. So speaking of, flash forward to how you guys ended up in Florida and what you guys have started since you guys have been there.
So the whole time we're doing our gym in Burson / Valley Springs. I'm working my day job, which is kind of the normal for most people who run academies. Everybody thinks, man, we're making money hand over fist.
Not at all.
The reality is, man, is everybody's working 2 or 3 jobs to make this thing work. And man, I'll be honest with you, we were hemorrhaging money when we were in California. The gym was not paying for itself. It's a labor of love. And my day job was predominantly paying the bills.
Right.
And then, because I would work for a company in Modesto, and they got bought by another company. And, somebody came to me and said, hey, I love the work that you've done. We have sister companies in Florida. They're like, do you think you could start a division similar to what you've done here in California? And at first I was like, I could. And then they made me an offer. And I sat down with Melissa and we're like, you know what? As much as I love everything we're doing, literally we blew 2 life savings on trying to chase the academy.
Oh yeah.
And
It's tough. A lot of people don't understand that too. They think that, you just put up a sign and put down some mats and all of a sudden you're making a ton of money. And it takes a while for you to grow your school the right way too. And really get it to take off to where it pays for itself, but to even earn a living off of it is really, really tough.
Yeah. And so I remember looking at her going, they're offering me a raise and a position. And I'm like, I feel like we're at a point in life where we need to do something for us right now. Because literally, we burnt through, not only did we burn through our life savings, which wasn't very big, but I took a loan out on the house to give it one more shot. And, and ultimately, everything was kind of coming due. So we're like, you know what, I love this thing, but we're literally paying, the majority of the bills out of our own pocket. So we sat the family down, talked to Christian, talked to Melissa, and ultimately said, hey, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be probably one of the hardest decisions we've ever made, but and then pretty much I was disowned by my family. It didn't go well.
Yeah.
I mean, I legit, I'm pretty sure I was disowned by my family when we first moved.
Yeah.
Because telling them that we made the choice to move out here did not go well.
Yeah. That's tough. I mean, it's very far, from everything.
Oh, yeah. And so we came out here literally with no safety net whatsoever. I mean, the idea that, most people is like, hey, if you move out there, you still at least have your family back here. I didn't even feel like we had that.
Yeah.
So when we moved out, it was dedicate to the business, to what pays the bills.
Mm-hmm.
So Melissa got a job. I started working in mine. Christian started wrestling out here in Florida, which Christian did phenomenal in his wrestling career. And so that's all we did for that time period. We didn't train. We didn't do anything of that nature. We just worked and focused on Christian's high school career.
Yeah.
And then when Christian said, hey, I think I want to fight, that's when we said, okay, well, if you want to fight, then we'll give this a shot. And so we started training again, and we found a gym out here that we kind of trained with them because they said they kind of had an MMA program. It really wasn't. And so, we were with them for about training out of their facility for about 8 months. And Christian had his first fight. He lost a split decision. And we all looked at each other and said, we know better.
Yeah.
That this is not how we train.
Yeah.
And so then we made the decision as a family that we would open up our academy again.
Yeah. And that's a tough decision, especially after running an academy here in California for a long time and, going through it the way you guys went through it. It's tough, but it's something like if you got everyone on board, right, it's really, it's bound to be successful, right? If you got Christian, you got your wife, you got everyone putting everything into it, you guys.
That's what we said.
But again, not as easy as everyone thinks, right?
And then we open, and wow, we were labeled Fight Club. Most of the local gyms, would bash us. A lot of the local jiu-jitsu schools out here claimed I was fake.
Yeah.
Because at the time period, I was a brown belt.
Right.
Brown belt under Eric. And man, the shit people talked was insane. We opened up as an MMA academy that specialized in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And like I said, Dark Wolf originally started, we were Lohsen Martial Arts when we were in California, but the team, Dark Wolf, that was in some of our first fights. I'm actually looking at the banner right now. It's in my lobby.
Yeah.
And so Dark Wolf as the name, we've had it for a while. The gym was not called Dark Wolf, and we decided to open as Dark Wolf here in Florida. And man, yeah, like I said.
Well, and it's super tough too, because you guys are new to Florida, right? Like you guys you don't have that established community, right? Full of people that know who you are.
Brand new.
Yeah.
And like I said, the local academies, all basic, because we opened up as an MMA school and they bashed us, telling people don't train with them because they're just a fight club. I'm like, dude, I offer more jiu-jitsu classes than you do.
Yeah.
I mean, you're claiming you are a specialty jiu-jitsu school that dabbles in kickboxing 2 days a week. I'm like, I'm an MMA school that offers 12 jiu-jitsu sessions a week.
Yeah.
I offer 3 times the amount of jiu-jitsu sessions you do.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
And then like, oh my God, a bunch of gyms, like, when they said, well, what's your lineage? I'm like, well, I'm an Eric Shingu brown belt who is Cesar Gracie. And they're like, bullshit. There are no Cesar Gracie academies in Florida. And I'm like, you're right. I go, I'm an Eric Shingu, individual. He is belted under Cesar. And again, so even when I traveled out to California to get my black belt with Eric, people out here claimed that was fake.
Yeah. Which is crazy,
People who
right?
still look me in the face today.
Yeah, that's wild to even consider though, because like, you know, this area, it's completely different, right? If you were to go into a local place here and tell them your lineage, a lot of people are going to be familiar with it, right?
Correct.
Out there, it's a little bit different. They're like, is this guy a McDojo? You know, what's he doing?
So then, you know, we do all right for ourselves. Our fight team rattled off, I think, 15 victories in a row.
Beautiful.
And you know, we were starting to make some waves, and again, so trying to make it to where people have to kind of stand up and take notice. I still have a chip on my shoulder from some of the shit people talk.
Yeah.
Like yeah, but so Caesar contacts me and he's like, Dave, he goes, how do you feel about having Nick Diaz out there to do a seminar? I'm like, man, Caesar, that'd be awesome. Let's set it up. So we get Nick out here, and people who talked shit are now calling me up, trying to see if they can piggyback. They're like, hey, instead of us sending guys over and doing the seminar at your school, can we get Nick to come to ours and do a second seminar? I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Like,
the same people talking shit on you, right?
I'm like, I have been in your academy to do seminars at least 5 times. You've never even set foot in mine. Why don't you come support? Why don't you come down and support over here? So then after the seminar goes off, yeah, and it was good. I mean, man, I'm telling you, Nick was on time.
Wow.
He actually was early.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was a great seminar.
Yeah.
And so Nick finishes up. We take him to the airport, you know, and he takes off. And some people, I mean, we had probably a good 100 people in the academy.
Wow.
And so afterwards, some people, you know, so we posted videos and going, look, if you guys missed it, you fucked up. You know, because people are like, he's not going to show. Like, no, not only did he show up, he was early.
Yeah.
And then people were messaging me going, dude, how did you get him to come out there? I go, again, this is the asshole that I am. I'm like, remember when you guys claimed I was fake? Would you like to call my phone number? Do you want the area code? It's 209.
Yeah, even to this day.
It's still to this day. It's still my phone number. I'm like, literally, I'm looking at my banner. It's still up here. My phone number's right at the bottom of it.
Oh, yeah.
209. Like,
yeah. It's crazy, though, because, like, I mean, you hear that kind of stuff. Like, I couldn't even imagine going to a state where I don't know anybody, right? And hopping and opening my own gym, because those questions are going to pop up, right? You gotta almost prove yourself, right? And even though you're a legit martial artist and you know, well respected in our area, you got to prove yourself all over again.
Correct. And that was the hard part. We did. I mean, we put down a lot of elbow grease and things of that nature. And I am proud to say, I mean, we can claim something that I don't think any other gym in Florida can claim. Like I said, some of the people that talk shit, I've been in their academy at least 4 or 5 times.
Right.
They cannot claim the same. We have probably been in nearly every major academy in Central Florida, going all the way up to pretty much just past Jacksonville and going almost all the way down to like Tampa and Vero Beach and Melbourne and things of that nature. In that entire area, we have probably been in almost all of the major academies in that area for one reason or another.
Right.
You know, and I don't think many other people can make that claim.
Yeah. You know, it's sometimes, you know, the downside with jiu-jitsu and even martial arts is it can be a little cliquey, right? You know, certain people are going to link up with certain people and, you know, they're going to have their little shit talking sessions and, you know, different things like that. So that's kind of one of the downsides of martial arts, you know. you got to prove yourself. You got to earn the respect the hard way sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and that's the part. I mean, we try as much as possible. I mean, yeah, as I tell people, like, look, I'm not a fight gym, but I'm willing to fight. There's a difference. I've got a couple posts out there that like I said, I still wear a little chip on my shoulder from what we've had to overcome to become one of the top schools in at least our area. I put a post out that basically says, everything that I've earned was paid for with blood, sweat, and tears.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you think I wouldn't bleed again to protect it?
Right.
I mean, and so it was nice. The big promotion locally for us is a promotion called Combat Night.
Oh yeah, I've followed it for a while now.
Yeah, they're pretty much the big promotion out here, and we've been kind of connected to them, when they weren't the big promotion, and kind of been with them as they've kind of raised up and the like. And I think it was last year that they put a couple posts out where they said, "Hey, here's the top schools that compete for Combat Night," and we were ranked number 3.
Yeah.
Again, for an academy that comes out of nowhere, that everybody claimed was fake and things of that nature. Like I said, I don't think most can claim how rapidly we've been able to kind of earn some respect.
Yeah, you can't deny those results, right? Results, the proof is in the pudding, right? You guys are out there doing it. You guys are out there competing.
Just for Combat Night alone, I think our team has earned, it's like 9 or 10 championships. Yeah. Just with Combat Night.
Yeah. And
everything from kickboxing to MMA, women and men. I mean,
and they have a great organization too. I think if you follow UFC like Fight Pass stuff, they do a documentary on Combat Night and how it started and the founders behind it, and it's pretty emotional.
Following Josh Simon.
Yeah. It's a pretty emotional, story when you actually break it down. And I suggest all the fans out there listening to the podcast go check it out. But Combat Night's it's a good organization. They're tough guys in there. I see their highlights and their fights and stuff. And I mean, it's not a walk in the park, right? Those guys are out there swinging. Yeah. So for you guys to have a lot of success in that organization is huge, and definitely can shut up all the doubters out there about your guys' lineage, about your guys' academy, any of that, right?
Yeah, and so I mean, people still talk what they talk, but the part is in most of them right now, it's kind of one of those things. It's as I was telling the fight team the other day, I said, it's kind of one of those, if people aren't talking, then you're probably not worth it,
right?
Because at this point in time, at first they were talking because we were making our way up. Now they're talking because they're trying to compare themselves.
Right.
But as long as they're talking, that means we're doing our work.
Yeah.
That means we're making waves. We're doing work. We're a very respectful. We are probably one of the more polite gyms. Every time I go to Combat Night or virtually any of these fights, like the last one we went to, I only had 2 fighters on the card. I think I wrapped up 5 fighters.
Yeah.
We've started to earn that reputation that we come prepared, and I always bring extra. Man, I've not been to a single fight yet where somebody hasn't forgotten something.
Oh yeah,
and not just our team, somebody,
everybody.
The craziest so far was somebody forgot their cup.
Yeah.
And they're going around. So one of the main guys, Richard, for Combat Night, comes over and he's shaking his head because he knows we're prepared. And he goes, Dave, I can't believe I'm about to ask this. He goes, but do you guys have an extra cup? Yep. And sure enough, one of our guys is like, I've got one. Yeah. And he's like, and I don't want it back.
Yep. That's yours. You earned it. Yeah. No, it's something else. You're right though. Like I've been to several fights. I've cornered fighters. There's always a mouthpiece, a bunch of tape.
Always.
No one has tape, right? No one has wraps, whatever it is. There's always something like that. So,
Well, even to the point, so Christian fought a gentleman by the name of Noah Cutter. And Christian won. And then we're about 1 or 2 events later, and we're in the back. We actually had a pretty good team on that one. And Christian comes up to me and he goes, Dad, he goes, would you be okay wrapping Noah's hands? He's fighting on this card and he needs his hands wrapped. I'm like, yeah, as long as Noah's cool, I don't have any issues.
Yeah.
I mean, I like being friends with most of the people we compete with.
Right.
And so then a little bit later, Christian comes up to me and he goes, Dad, he goes, Noah's coaches won't be showing up. Some sort of emergency happened. They won't be here. Are you willing to corner him for his fight? And I'm like, what do you mean his coaches won't be here? They're like, yeah, his coaches aren't going to show up. So could you corner him for his fight? And I'm like, I mean, I can if he needs it.
Yeah.
So Noah came over and, we talked for a little bit. Christian had just fought him. So, I already had a pretty good idea of who he is.
Right.
And what his specialties are and things of that nature. But I mean, so even in like combat night stuff like that, not only have I wrapped hands for other fighters, but I've even been asked to corner. So we did Icon in Biloxi, Mississippi. This is a Roy Jones Jr. Boxing promotion as well as an MMA event.
Okay.
And I'm an MMA guy, and they're asking me to corner the main event of the boxing lineup.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoever the opponent was needed his hands wrapped and needed somebody to corner him.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah. I mean, people that haven't been around the MMA scene like really deep, like you and I have, there's a lot of people that don't have a corner. It happens. I've seen it several times. Pro fighters,
Right. This is a main event on UFC Fight Pass.
Yeah, that's crazy.
On a Roy Jones, he's fighting one of Roy Jones Jr.'s guys, and he doesn't have a corner.
Yeah, that's wild.
I mean, it's insane to me.
Yeah. So you've cornered Christian in every one of his fights. What's your guys' preparation going into the fights? Like, how do you guys prepare for the fights? And then are you guys doing any big competitions? Is Christian looking to compete or anything like that in the jiu-jitsu scene? Because the jiu-jitsu scene's blowing up nowadays.
So yeah, I wish Christian would. I mean, he is easily one of the top grapplers. I mean, it's ridiculous how good he is. And most people don't even know. If you're in Central Florida, he goes down. There's the group Fusion Excel, Julian Williams and those guys down there, just by Orlando. They got they were the gym that Jacare then called home.
Yeah.
And Adolfo Vieira and Machida was coming in and things of that nature. And Christian's going down there, and they fell in love with him. Jacare fell in love with him, Machida, things of that nature, because Christian is special.
Yeah.
Especially in the jiu-jitsu game. I mean, Christian really is special. But I wish he would do some more grappling.
Yeah.
Because I think Christian is probably the biggest hidden gem in the grappling scene that most people don't know.
Right.
But his concentration right now is MMA. We picked up, this is where wrestling did Christian really well. We picked up on some personality traits on Christian of what got him up for a match, what mentally didn't get him up for a match.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of identified this while he was doing wrestling. Because everybody's different. Like some guys, man, you gotta amp them up in the back. You gotta really get after them.
Yeah.
And other guys,
you gotta wake them up.
You gotta wake them up. And so, luckily, the good part is Julian was with me. We were both cornering Christian at a fight. Julian was with me at Contender Series, and we got a chance to we were sharing the hotel together. And Julian was asking me the question. He's like, "Hey, so what is it like being both coach and dad?" And he's like, "Can you separate the two?" And there was one fight we were together on in the corner. And I think he understood, because Christian had just done the banana split. And, the crew that was there in Biloxi when we were doing the Icon, all they're doing is asking Christian, hey, are you going to hit another banana split? Are you going to hit another banana split? They're calling him Mr. Fight Night, things of that nature. And all they're just blowing up his head about getting another highlight reel finish. And he was going up against a tough kid. And so round one, Christian's going for twisters and banana splits and stuff like that. And I honestly thought Christian was losing the fight, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Because unfortunately in the scoring criteria, they don't score submission attempts. They score strikes, even if they're horrible, but they still score them.
Right.
And so Christian goes through rounds 1 and 2, and all he's doing is just trying to go for highlight reel after highlight reel after highlight reel. And, in Christian's corner, I'm the voice that talks. We always know in every corner who's the voice, who's giving the instruction. So we don't have a whole bunch of people yelling instruction. And Julian was with me, and between rounds 2 and 3, I sat down and I'm looking at Christian in the face and I go, knock that shit off. I go, all you're going for is the highlight reel. This fight should have been fucking over a long time ago. I go, stop fucking around, get back to just some straight up ground and pound, and go hit a triangle or an arm bar or something of that nature. I'm like, let's call this one done.
Yeah.
Julian kind of gave me that look like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like,
well, you stay in there long enough and something bad's bound to happen, right? You give them too much meat on the bone. So that's a wise thing as a coach, but not only that, as a dad, like, hey, time to cut the bullshit. And let's turn it up.
Yeah.
So,
but it's one of those things though. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I mean,
yeah,
what father wouldn't love? And I'm still hoping to get my shot. I'm still hoping to get my shot to have my UFC jersey on and stand cage side when he gets to make his debut.
Oh yeah.
I'm still hoping to see Lohsen on the back of the UFC jersey.
Yeah, on the fight shorts, right?
Yeah,
that'd be badass, man. And your family, not only Christian's accolades, are amazing, but your whole entire family, like, you guys have accomplished something that's I don't know many other people that have done this. But not only are you a black belt, Melissa's a black belt, but now Christian's a black belt. And that's a powerful thing. And in my opinion, well-respected black belts under Cesar Gracie, right? And so having that, man, as a family, like, like for me, I don't see how people could doubt you guys, like with a son like Christian, doing the damn thing in MMA, right? And just like what you guys are doing in the scene, man, it's really awesome. And, like I said, I don't know any other families that are black belts like that. Like it's probably not that common.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be. And it's crazy to me because, when you're passionate about something, how does the people around you not get drawn in?
Yeah.
Now I've been lucky, not only did they get drawn in, but they became obsessed with it like I did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I got lucky. My daughter's the exception. But Melissa became obsessed with it. Christian became obsessed with it, to the point where, like I said, I consider myself to be a good grappler, but not a great grappler. I think I'm very good. It's interesting. Like I don't have a whole lot of cookie cutter people in the gym. Most of our fight team, somebody when we were fighting over in Tampa, we were fighting against some friends, and they're like, hey, just letting you know, my academy was trying to get some information on you guys and picking my brain. And he goes, man, the only thing I can tell you is, he goes, be ready, because they're all tough. He goes, and they're all different.
Yeah.
He goes, I can't tell you there's not a single style. He goes, they're all different, and their strengths. Everyone on the fight team, fights slightly different and has different strengths. And I take that with pride,
Yeah.
And truly speaking, as far as accolades are concerned, both Christian and Melissa have surpassed me. But I've been playing more the coaching role, than the athlete role.
Right.
So
It changes a little bit, everyone has a little bit different way it goes, no journeys are alike in jiu-jitsu. And, sometimes you go the coaching route. And in fact, that's the route I've been going lately, right? Where I'm not focusing on my competitions or anything like that, but I want to pour into others and make others better and, do everything I can to see them accomplish their goals. And there's nothing wrong with that,
Yeah. It's tough sometimes because I still get the competitive itch. I mean, I've only stepped third place at Master Worlds, and I've only stepped on third at Pans.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to stand on top at least once.
Yeah.
I've stood on top at a couple opens, but I haven't stood on top at the big show.
Right.
So. But I don't know, man. Those dudes are fucking huge.
Yeah, man.
Those guys are big. I'm not exactly small.
Yeah.
Those guys make me feel small.
Yeah, there's a lot of beef rolling around on those mats, man.
Yeah.
And but man, it's awesome to see where everything's come, man. You really have gone through it all, man. Like it's not an easy journey. And I don't think jiu-jitsu should be. If it's easy and it's going, real smooth and everything, something's not right. Right? You got to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest things in my opinion in the world to do, right? And to continue to do it is even harder. Injuries happen, things in life happen. And you've seen it a bunch, I'm sure, but the blue belt blues, right? Things happen. All of a sudden they disappear and you never see them again, or you see them sporadically. So,
well, I do certificates for all of my belts. And so I have records of every belt I've ever promoted. And it is crazy. How many blue belts am I at right now? I'm in my 40s.
Yeah, 40s.
Like 45, 46.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you look at how many are still training.
Yeah.
Of that 45, 46.
10.
I mean, yeah, maybe about 10 of them.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to promote my first black belt.
Nice.
I'll be doing that in December. And then I've got a good string that will be popping up shortly after that.
Yeah.
Because I've got my first black belt will be in December, and then I've got like 4 that are being promoted to brown belt in March. So it kind of starts to set the tone a little bit.
Oh yeah. And for someone that's been doing martial arts and not only martial arts but jiu-jitsu as long as you, how do you stay motivated and fresh, right? What keeps you going? There's obviously with every human, there's times where we get down and there's times where, we may not be in the right space and, maybe a little unmotivated, right? How do you continue to keep that motivation and not only that, but pour it into your students?
Man, it's tough. There's more heartache in this game than there probably is anything else. Because you hear too much right now of people saying about how, well, I pay my dues and whatever, but this is a relationship based business,
Mm-hmm.
And it's tough because, you pour your heart into somebody for 6 years. You build them up to become fairly successful, and it breaks your heart sometimes when they just choose that you're not where they want to be anymore.
Yeah.
And they want to go somewhere else. I mean, in the beginning, there's a little bit of attrition, and in the beginning it kills you. And then eventually you just kind of realize that attrition is going to exist no matter what.
Yeah.
You're going to get a lot of new people in the door, and most of them won't last.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it kills you because you're like, man, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
And unfortunately speaking, this game is not for everybody. A lot of people want to be in this game, but it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, there's the attrition that's going to exist no matter what. And that was the first part I had to come to terms with, is that I cannot please everybody.
Yeah.
As much as I wanted to, I can't. I was the one that was being sacrificed when I tried to please everybody. And I had to come to terms to understand that, some people will just choose to leave,
Yeah.
and again, in the beginning, it's going to be a lot of your white belts, but then, your blue belt's going to leave, and then potentially a purple belt might leave. And, it's like, it sucks.
Yeah.
It's, people don't really realize, as I tell people, like, look, name anything you're going to do in life for 2, 4, 6, 10 years, and tell me you didn't make a relationship. Tell me you didn't build a friendship in that time period.
Oh, it's like it's impossible to not build one, right?
Exactly. That's what I tell you. If you're within any group for a couple years and you didn't make any friends, like, leave.
Yeah.
I don't care where you are.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't care if you're at work. I mean, if you go into a business and you've been there for 2 years and you can't claim that you made any friends while you were there,
Yeah.
man, you gotta
You're
go.
in the wrong spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very true though. Very true. And it's like you brought up a good point. Like it hurts you at first, right? It's probably, you get down on yourself for, you see these higher level guys leaving or something like that. You're like, man, and it kind of brings you down. But, to overcome that and to just grind and keep pushing forward is important, right? Because you got other people that are committed, right? And people that want to be there, and people that are in love with the system and making friends and turning jiu-jitsu into a family, right? And so,
well, and the hard part is, though, is, none of that's what I started this thing for in the first place.
Yeah.
And you hear all the time, it's like, remember your why.
Yeah.
And that is, it's great advice, because we get distracted from what did I start this whole thing for in the first place?
Yeah.
It wasn't for that championship belt that's up on the wall. It wasn't for a bunch of this other stuff. Eventually we start to think it's why, because it's fun, man. Who doesn't love to go to competition and win a medal and see the rest of your team growing and things of that nature? But 90% of the people who trust me on their journey have no desire to earn that belt.
Yeah.
They have no desire to go compete.
Right.
And they are some of the best people on the floor.
Yeah. Some of my favorite students are like that, and I mean, I hear people say, oh, you shouldn't have favorites, but it's hard.
No, you always do.
There's some people that you just click, personalities or whatever it is. But, some of my favorite students, they have no idea in their mind. They never want to compete, right? They just want to keep training, keep getting better, keep, making a foundation of friends, right? And they're not striving to be a world champion. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
I one of the parents one time accused me of, they're like, you just want to work with your favorites. I'm like, damn right I do.
Yeah. Who doesn't?
Because my favorites work hard. They show up early. They stay late. If I ask them to do something, they go at it. I mean,
yeah.
Like, who doesn't want to work with that kind of person?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's humbling too. Like, I mean, you see the people that are like that, if they have no intentions of being a world champion and they're still putting in the hard work, right? There's something special there. There's, a lot of people are doing it for the fame or to, have their name on something, right? Or, have their own gym with their name on the wall and a big old picture of them. But, it's the people that don't care about that, right? That are still in there grinding and training and trying to be the best version of themselves.
Right. Well, and to be honest with you, I mean, those are the ones that create a healthy academy.
Yeah.
They're the ones that help you keep the doors open. They're the ones that when you get new students in are probably the ones that are going to help you keep those students.
Yeah.
We tell the fight team all the time, like, yeah, you guys cost me money, but I love you.
Yeah.
I don't get new students because of what the fight team did over the weekend.
No. It's actually, sometimes it turns people away, right? They don't want to be around a bunch of fighters.
And I pay twice the insurance because of it.
Yep.
And the fact that we have a fight team and a cage doubles our insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, I was just told triples.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. It
Yeah,
can't be cheap, with that kind of stuff. I'm learning myself, right? Um, getting into my gym. My gym's not even a year old yet, and some of the things I've learned so far are invaluable. And to understand that, right, and kind of build the network the way you want, right? You don't want
right.
to get an environment that you're not even happy to be in, right?
Yeah,
You
right.
want an environment that everyone can embrace, and for a lot of people, they just it's hard to understand until you're actually in that position.
Yeah, when we first started up, I made a little sign and I laminated it, and Melissa gave me a look like, "What are you doing?" And I put it right at the entrance of the mats. And the sign simply says, I'm looking at it right now because we moved it from one location to the other. It says, although the martial arts are for everyone, Dark Wolf is not.
Yeah.
We reserve the right to refuse service to anyone, and again, I don't say that because I'm trying to be crass or anything else, but this is the way I describe it to most people. I mean, there's lots of other jiu-jitsu gyms in town,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Just because you like Mexican food doesn't mean you like every Mexican restaurant.
No.
Okay. Some of them you will like the service but not the food. Some of them you'll like the food but not the service. Some of them you'll like the food but not the price. And none of it's wrong.
Yeah.
So as I tell people, like, look, originally I tried to cater to everybody. I tried to make everybody happy.
Which is
And
impossible.
so, and like I said, the only person that paid a price was me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, and so I was not going home happy.
Yeah.
I was leaving the gym frustrated almost on a nightly basis.
Yeah.
And so finally, I told Melissa, I'm like, look, we're gonna do what we feel is right. And hopefully other people will want to join us on that journey. And if they don't, that's okay.
Yeah.
There's other places. We're not the most hardcore gym, but we're certainly not the soft one.
Yeah.
There's other gyms out there for that.
Yeah.
Again, some people like spicy food and some people don't.
Yeah.
And the
That's
biggest
true.
part, well, the biggest part we also had to tell them at the same time is like, look, I get it. You want to train here so bad. You want this to be your home, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
The way you want us to change to fit what you want. What you want is actually the gym down the road.
Yeah. Well, and that's protecting your culture. I've talked to a lot of black belts and a lot of gym owners, and doing this show has really taught me a lot when it comes to that. And one of the biggest things I got is you got to have your culture, and what like you said, remembering your why, right? And
Yeah.
creating that environment that you're looking for, and that culture is not going to be for everybody. And
Correct.
and to
And you have to be
understand
okay with
that,
that.
yeah, you got to understand that, and you got to accept it. Or else you're going to be, miserable, leaving the gym every night, not happy, right? And that thing that you've worked so hard and put your whole life into creating is now something that's bringing you down.
Right.
So, man,
and it is tough. It is tough sometimes. We haven't asked very many people to leave the gym,
yeah,
but sometimes you have to.
mm-hmm. It happens.
Because we tell people, like, look, the culture in the gym didn't happen by chance. We understood the culture that we wanted, we cultivated it, and we are constantly tending to that culture
Mm-hmm.
to ensure that it stays. Because at the end of the day, we're the ones that will be here.
Yeah.
When other people pick and choose that they want to go here or there or whatever, we're going to be the ones that have to clean up whatever mess they leave behind.
Yeah.
Or whatever mess we don't allow them to create. Kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
If you're going to carry product, you better love that product.
Yeah.
Because if somebody else is telling you and you don't really like it, you're going to end up with a lot of it left over, and nobody else is going to want it.
Yeah.
So you better make sure that what you're getting is something that you like and that you enjoy, because ultimately, one, I don't want to sell anything in my academy that I wouldn't use.
Yeah. You have to
I mean,
believe in whatever you have, right? And even when it comes to your martial arts too, like you have to believe in it.
right,
And like I come from a sales background. I sell HVAC systems, right? And if you don't understand and if you don't believe that system's great, then it's really going to be hard to sell, and it's really going to be hard to help people out. And
right.
in fact, you're kind of you're not really true to yourself if you believe it's not, and you're over here telling everyone it is. So it comes down to being honest with yourself, being true to yourself, right, and your beliefs.
The other part I had to get over was it's okay to make money.
Yeah.
Melissa just laughed, uh, but seriously, I had this idea in my head that making money made me a McDojo.
Yeah.
That at that point in time, that this idea that we could actually turn a profit and actually turn this into a real living made me feel guilty.
Yeah.
And coming to terms with that for me personally was probably the hardest part.
Yeah.
Of being allowed to make money, not feel guilty about it, but at the same time, we're not all about the money. I mean, like as we told you, this is a business. I got bills to pay.
Yeah.
I have 10 employees now.
Mm-hmm. That's
I
pretty
mean,
great.
it boggles my mind when Melissa, I'm looking at the number and I'm like, what is that? And she goes, that's payroll. I'm like, never in my life would I have ever thought that number would be something I mean, that number is not even what I would think of that I would pay just for total expenses over a month.
Yeah.
And here's Melissa telling me that that's this week's payroll.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, but yet, here we are. I mean, we got people who, I mean, I think it's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
That, we have people here that work for us that can actually make a decent wage. I mean, it's not a great wage, but man, I mean, the whole time I was coming up, I paid.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like, well, I paid my dues. I'm like, I'm the owner of the gym. I paid 4 times what you paid. I mean, that was just to keep the gym open.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Yeah, but and like I said, that was a hard thing for me, and it still is.
Yeah.
It's not only is it okay, but it's a necessity.
Yeah. You have to, the downside that I see in this is, a lot of people, hey, yeah, you could come train for free. Yeah, no problem.
Oh my God,
yeah.
I gave everything away.
Yeah, and that's like the worst thing you can do, because not only, are you're going to struggle more to pay the bills and have a lot more stress on you, but the fact is, like, you're not going to get very far, and there's no value in it. Right? You got to have value in what you're doing, or else it's just like, all right, cool, like charity,
I gave everything away, and then I would get frustrated because, Melissa and I would be talking, and she's like, what? And I'm like, well, so-and-so just gave me the sob story about how they can't afford to train and everything else. So I went ahead and was like, hey, I'll take care of tuition. And then they come in, a week later, and they got the brand new iPhone.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sitting here literally going, I ate top ramen today for lunch.
Yeah.
Because I can't afford it. And yet the person who gave me the sob story is rocking the brand new iPhone.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, that's tough, man. That's like one of the worst things, like one of the worst feelings, right? You're over here struggling, giving things away while everyone else is thriving, that can start to weigh in on your relationships. I'm sure.
Exactly.
I'm sure it's real tough with that. Right. And when it comes to money, right, if you look at the divorce rate in this country, most of it is over money. So
Yes.
like it can be very, very hard on the family, on the relationship, on, your attitude going into it. Right. If you're making money it's a little bit easier to be motivated, right? And to go in there and to train harder and, but like if you're
Right.
struggling,
Well, like I
you
said,
got to wait on you.
I gave it all away. I
Yeah.
mean, Melissa's giving me the looks because
Yeah.
she knows. I mean, most of the time she'd be like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know." She's like, "Well, we're not going to pay rent this month." Yep, I know.
Yeah.
Like, I'll put in some extra hours.
Yeah. And
And then,
that's hard, man.
but now though, it's one of those things where, I got the chance to get Melissa over first to make this her professional career.
Mm-hmm.
And then my 50th birthday was the day I walked away from my job for 23 years.
Yeah, man, that's
So
awesome.
now
Congratulations.
this is what we do professionally. And it's an amazing feeling, but it is the toughest job that either one of us have ever had to do. And I mean, we both worked hard.
Oh yeah,
Things that nature.
Yeah, you guys have definitely put in the hard work and all the struggle that goes with it, man. Like the ups, the downs, the great sessions, the bad sessions. It all ties in, and it really creates like who you are. Like if you can keep powering through that stuff, man, then that mind's gonna be even stronger and stronger each time. And like I love hearing it's kind of sounds bad, but I love hearing you talk about the struggles because not a lot of people do. We live in a time where Instagram and Facebook, everyone sees all the good shit, right?
Oh yeah.
It's always the good shit, but they don't hear about the nights that we were awake stressing out or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's something that, like I really respect hearing and I think that more people need to be real about because, not everything is, Facebook. I don't know. I have a hard time with that, and you never hear people talk about those struggles, but everyone's going through them.
Right.
People are going through them. So it really shows a lot, man. And hearing you talk about this kind of stuff, man, it's really eye opening, and
Yeah.
I
Well, it's one of those where, because I've told Melissa a couple times, because especially when you teach like kids classes, because you have an audience, you're teaching class and you've got an audience of the parents critiquing your performance the entire time you're teaching class.
Mm-hmm.
And I have joked, I mean, I'm not the only one. I mean, there's other people that put it out there. It's like saying, look, how about this? I go to your job tomorrow and I'll sit in the lobby and critique your work all day.
Yeah.
And go to your work. How about that?
Yeah.
Because you're sitting there and you're doing a kid's promotion,
mm-hmm.
and you hear one of the dads in the back, I don't know why he's promoting that kid. My kid's better than him.
Yeah.
And so seriously, I at one point in time, I'm right in the middle of one of my kids' gradings, and I overheard a couple of the dads basically doing the why is Dave promoting this person and everything else. So I stopped and I went, look, like when you have the rank around your waist, you get to make the decisions that you want to make. And until you do, I don't really care about your opinion. But here's the part I'm going to throw out there. If you don't think when I hand a child their belt, if you don't think they're worth the rank that I'm handing to them, then take the belt that you have on your waist, take it off and throw it away.
Yeah.
Because what you've said is you don't value my decision, and I made the choice to put the belt on your waist. Take it off.
Yep.
Pure and simple.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you said, man, it's a hard thing, with the audience, there's always opinions and even when you open a gym, right, you hear all this other things, like all these people from the outside telling you what you need to do, what you don't need to do, the way you need to put things up, the way you need to change this and change that, but they've never ran a gym.
Well, and the vast majority of them, if you do what they ask, they will be gone, within a couple months.
Very true.
and you are left with the financial burden of all the things they told you to
Right.
do. Because
Right.
that happened to us.
Yeah.
I mean, all these people are like, oh man, if you expanded, if you did this, if you did that, and then, you're like, man, they put that buzz in your head, and then you do it, and then they're gone.
Yeah. That's the worst, right?
And that's where, ultimately speaking, I mean, it's a delicate, fine line, because, I need to make sure that my academy members are happy, and I need to make sure that they're safe, and that the environment that we're creating is something where they want to be. But at the same time, like I said, I want to go home happy.
Yeah.
I want to know that what I'm creating, what my wife is creating, what my son is creating, I want to know that it's still our dream,
Right.
and hasn't become somebody else's.
Very true. Very true. It's, you can't live for anyone else, right? You got to live for your circle, your family, your kids, your wife, right? Because those are the ones that stay with you, and that's your community, right? And at the end of the day, you guys are going home having supper, right? You're not having supper with all these other people at their houses every single night, right? You're going with your family. So, that's truly the opinions that matter, is the team behind you, the family behind you, and, what you guys are doing. And, and I think, Dave, that you and your family have created something special, and, it just shows because you guys have been able to move it across the country. And, I'm sure it wasn't easy. I'm sure, there was times that you've learned, and had to adjust and adapt. But, the things that you guys have been through have all been for a reason. And, you guys are definitely on the right path. And, I wish you guys nothing but success. And, I know that you guys will achieve it. The journey is what it's all about. It's not about the end result, right? Everyone sees the success and that, but it's the journey along the way that really defines you. And I have nothing but respect for all of you guys for what
Appreciate
you guys
that.
have been through, and the journey you guys have done and what you guys have created, and it's very special. And I just wanted to wrap this thing up by just talking about the future goals for Dark Wolf. And any future events you guys have coming up, just to kind of throw them out there for the fans, so they can follow you guys on social media and stuff like that.
So social media, Facebook, we're Dark Wolf MMA. There's a couple other Dark Wolves out there, but we're the only Dark Wolf MMA. I bought the website darkwolfmma.com a long time ago. I kicked myself in the ass because darkwolf.com, they wanted $1,500 for it, and I should have done it. But it's a huge gamer tag, apparently. But no, darkwolfmma.com, that's our website. Dark Wolf MMA is our Facebook. At Dark Wolf MMA is our Instagram. We have both at Dark Wolf MMA and at Dark Wolf BJJ. Which I also own all of those for websites. I've got Dark Wolf MMA and darkwolfbjj.com.net.org. I wanted to make sure that, because a school opened up in Japan called Dark Wolf MMA.
Oh, wow.
Now, granted, I predate them by about 15 years, but yeah, I think they're closed. I think they're closed now. I don't think they still exist, but they tried.
On that World Wide Web, I don't know if people still call it that anymore, but on the World Wide Web, it is all over the world. So you having those things is important.
Yeah. So when I bought it as a package to get the .com, .net, .org, now you can pretty much get any extension that you want. And then my son has his own. He is Christian Hollywood Lohsen. So if anybody wants to check him out as a professional athlete, that's on Facebook, and he is Monkey Jiu-Jitsu on Instagram. And then as far as the gym, man, we're out here doing our thing right now. We're getting ready to kick off 2025. We just had a big team meeting with the fight team, so we are hoping, cross our fingers. One of our guys right now just did an interview for the Ultimate Fighter, so
nice.
We're hoping that that we might see some big stuff
That's
that
awesome.
hopefully can launch. If not, I mean, the guys are pushing pretty heavy.
Yeah.
I got some really talented guys in the fight team. And then who knows? We might see a Dark Wolf expansion.
Yeah.
In the next couple of years, either another facility or a couple affiliates, and and then hopefully our next big step, as my wife and I keep talking about, our next big step is right now. I'm tired of being a renter. I want to be an owner.
Right.
So
That's smart.
So our next big step is hopefully we want to be the owners of this building, not the renters. I already told my landlord when our lease is up, there's only a handful of things that are happening. I'm either buying the building or I'm buying another building.
Yeah.
But when the lease is up, I pretty much told him that's what's happening. That's what's next.
Yeah, that's smart, man. That's very smart. So
and then we're hoping, like I said, we're hoping to grow a little bit because Melissa and I, we're both in our 50s now. So we're trying to look at what kind of legacy we can leave behind.
Yeah.
And hopefully set Christian up and his family so that that he can start to make a good professional living. When the fight game, when he comes to the end of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's wise of you guys, to set it up for the future, right? Looking ahead is very important when it comes to a gym or even in life, like you said, trying to set up the future. It's very important to do, man. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, man. And like I said, it's always great catching up with you, brother. And I wish you guys nothing but great success. And
awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah, go check them out, man. Dave and Melissa Lohsen are awesome people, and Christian as well. And go check them out on Instagram, on Facebook. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And this has been another awesome episode of Grapplers Talk. And
this is Grapplers Talk.